Hello, everyone, and most welcome to the Badabadam 1700 episode. We have reached a centennial. Hooray! We will celebrate at the end of this second take of 1700 with some drink and say cheers. And I would like to address everyone watching this philosophical, never-ending story, so to speak, that has now going on several years and covered a lot of areas: neurology, science of cognition, biology, quantum mechanics, evolution, political theory, psychology, memory training, so remember, also development psychology, or in the guise of Wayne Dyer and Joe Dispenza, brain research, as that of Lisa Bortet, Friedman, Georgi Bourjaki, and many others. The Alexander technique, being a constant present in all the episodes. The name giver of the series, Martin Heidegger, always a welcome guest. Jacques Derrida, Arkady Plotnitsky, Husserl, Immanuel Kant, Newton has been constantly returning. Like the Dutch frigate, never disappearing from view. Ludwig Wittgenstein, Leibniz with his monads, Bishop Berkeley, Huygens, not to forgetting Julian Barber, Carlo Rovelli, Chiara Marchetto with contrafactual physics. There are a lot of names. I can't mention all of them, and of course Stephen M. Rosen, Merleau-Ponty. We also took a gander at Foucault. The Frankfurt School has been appearing with Gadamer and also with Adorno. There are specific names to be mentioned in connection with Derrida, and one of them is, of course, Rodolphe Gachet, the Luxembourgian professor, which I am very thankful to. Roberto Magliola, amazing writer, and many, many more. But let's take the rest with a finishing up now to the text. And we are presently in Revelation and Revolution by Roland Boer. So we are at page 10. Now we've been discussing parallels and oppositions. That Engels made a comparison of Christianity at the early stages, according to Engels, attracting the paupers, the proletarians, and he makes a connection with the communist movement that is also a millenarian proletarian directed movement. We also compared the violence, so to speak, of Engels with the peacefulness of Christianity. Important contradictions for Jesus to be peaceful and Engels to be the general he was. Without these polarities, none of the properties would be existent. So we begin with however, where I ended last time in the read. However, let me begin with a curious feature about this essay that takes us all the way back to Engels's early enthrallment with apocalypticism. The final pages deal with revelation. It may be exactly the same biblical text, but the way he uses it is vastly different from his use in the early days. Basing his research on some contemporary biblical scholarship, especially that of Ferdinand Berner of the University of Berlin. And Bruno Boer, Engels argues that Revelation is the earliest Christian document. Now he can use it as a purely historical source, mining it for information about the beliefs and practices of the early Christians. Above all, he seeks to decode it and show that all those who use it for speculation about the end of history are simply misguided. Yet these arguments are expanded from an essay he had written and published 11 years earlier, titled simply The Book of Revelation. So let us have a look at this earlier text. In that essay, published in 1883 in Forwards, Engels seeks to introduce the still relatively new German critical approach to the New Testament. Today, this approach goes by the name of historical criticism, for its two main drives are to reconstruct the history of the literature of the Bible and the history behind the Bible. It is now a tired orthodoxy, zealously defended by a dwindling number of practitioners. In Engels's day, however, it had a radical freshness, since it undermined many of the traditional positions that the churches held regarding the Bible. All the same, Engels is after the most critical work of the lot, bypassing those who sought to reconcile historical criticism with religious belief. So he settles on the work of none other than Bruno Boer. For some strange reason, Engels does not mention Boer in the essay on revelation. Part of the reason was that the year before, Engels had written a piece entitled Bruno Boer and Early Christianity. Composed on the occasion of Boer's death. It is an appreciative essay that goes to great lengths to show how the form of Christianity that has come down to us has little, if anything, to do with its earliest forms. Of course, once one has taken such a position, the next step is to account for that well-known final form. Following Boer, Engels argues that what we know as Christianity is the result of a combination of vulgar and popularized versions of the Neoplatonism of Philo of Alexandria. Seneca's Stoicism and Roman imperial beliefs about the emperor as son of God. But why did Christianity catch on? Here, Engels moves beyond Boer to offer a materialist analysis spiced with some Darwinian observations. The class structure of the Roman Empire, along with crumbling cultural and religious options, opened the way for a system of belief that answered personal despair by offering an otherworldly solution that was open to anyone and everyone. It was a case of survival of the fittest. By contrast, what lay behind all of this, back at the earliest moment, was very different. Now all three essays converge, for Engels takes up Boer's argument that revelation is the best window into early Christianity. Assuming a date of composition between late 68, early 69 Common Era, it presents a group of Jews who believed that the end would come soon. There's no Trinity, for Jesus is subordinate to God, and there certainly is no Holy Spirit. There's no doctrine of original sin, no baptism or sacrament of communion, no justification by faith, no elaborate story of the death and resurrection of Christ. And there's no religion of love, for the author preaches sound, honest revenge. on the persecutors. The author of the text is unknown, and all of the visions find precursors in the Hebrew Bible and other apocalyptic documents that preceded Revelation. To top it off, Engels recounts a theory heard in a lecture by Ferdinand Werner that the infamous number 666 can easily be deciphered through some deft playing with numbers. Given that Hebrew uses letters of the alphabet for numbers, all we need to do is add up the value of the Hebrew Neron Kesar, and we have 666. So Revelation predicts the end of the beast, Nero, at the hand of God, and ushers in the new age. How has Engels' reconstruction stood the test of time? It is easy to dismiss it as reliant on out-of-date scholarship. To say that Boer was too extreme in his skepticism, and to point out that Werner's numerical theory is implausible. We can hardly blame Engels for using the biblical scholarship that was available at the time. Nor can we accuse him of complete ignorance of biblical criticism, for he recounts at great length the positions of the dominant Tübingen school. where Strauss also began, and the popularizing work of Ernst Renan. I would be in a similar situation if someone a century from now were to read a position I take today in relation to contemporary biblical scholarship, especially if I was dependent on that scholarship rather than developing my own position. The strange thing is that the underlying assumptions of Boer's work, and thereby that of Engels, are the same in the historical critical scholarship of the Bible today. The tides of some forms of scholarship may rise and fall, but the basic assumptions remain unchanged. One must be very careful in using the Bible for any historical reconstruction, since it is unreliable to some degree. The overwhelming concern is with origins, whether that of early Christianity or early Israel. Archaeology plays a crucial role since it provides evidence that is external to the text. And one spends an inordinate amount of energy discussing authorship and dates, which, like the fashion in shirts, can go only one of two directions, up or down. Engels, Boer, and the Tübingen School, and historical critical scholars today all share the same assumptions. Furthermore, though some of Boer's concerns are still very much alive in biblical criticism, such as the influence of Stoicism and the connection with Philo. Boer's argument that the letters of Paul predate the Gospels, which come from the 2nd century Common Era, still holds water, although his theory of revelation as the earliest document has little credibility. However, his radical skepticism has returned to biblical scholarship, especially through the so-called minimalist school, which finds little that is historically reliable concerning Jesus in the text of the Hebrew Bible or the New Testament. I would put that. Stop there in the reading. Just let's see here. I'm gonna put the spot where I ended. Where did we end? Let's see. Very good, thank you much. There are some rather interesting things here, some gems to pick up. On page 11 here, second paragraph, 12. Engels argues. Begin, I think it's 10 lines down on page 11. Yeah, there we have it. Engels argues that what we know now as Christianity is the result of a combination of vulgar and popularized versions of the Neoplatonism of Philo of Alexandria, Seneca Stoicism, etc., etc. The Neoplatonism is almost close to it as deconstructionist you can find. And at the very end of my read now, I find typical Neoplatonist reasoning at the very end. And it's about end of the first paragraph of the two only ones. And what I found here is a re-evaluation of Engels using Neoplatonistic, how can you call it? The Neoplatonistic foundation with truths and origins and looking into the analysis. It's extremely Platonistic. You can read here Boer's argument that the letters of Paul predate the Gospels, which come from the 2nd century Common Era, still holds water, although his theory on revelation as the earliest document has little credibility. So they use foreign religion here, traits that are very odd for Christianity. And this very odd view of truth being mechanistic from the original, or is checked, for instance, completely alien in other cultures and wouldn't make truth at all. Like this is similar to when we looked at, not me comparing myself to Derrida or anything. No, hey, no, I still haven't drunk the champagne. No risk. But when we looked at Bernard and Kegelheim, and I think it was especially François Jacob, they despise teleology and then they have it. It is not an absolute parallel to that here. It is not Engels who said he despised Neoplatonism, but it is definitely in the modern era. It's the religion of the day in all its oddities. And these terms one tries to hide, one do not like to admit, and I think most, if you don't go into the notes, it will just be assumed to be truth from that extremely odd way of establishing truth, from an original or even worse comparison to something else. I can imagine how these so-called verifications come about, verifications or falsification came about. That, for instance, the book of Revelation were not before, so on. And then they tried to put it into a time scale. It's very interesting. It's very interesting. And it doesn't consist in a true opposition either that could make for a healthy text. But we also have an example here on page 11, and I know slightly skewing the subject. The third paragraph, about 6 lines down. And there is a mentioning of Jews that believe that the end would come soon. And here's the side. There is no Trinity, for Jesus is subordinate to God, and there is certainly no Holy Spirit. There is no doctrine of original sin or sacrament of communion. No justification by faith, no elaborate story of the death and resurrection of Christ. And there is no religion of love. So they preach and recommend some honest revenge on the persecutors. And if we stick to this text only and follow the argument of Derrida, so there's nothing outside the text. Il y a dehors de texte. Love cannot be possible for this because they don't have the opposite of the warlike. So they become just anger, just this attack, and of revenge. Without oppositions, the happy coincidence of oppositions, as we called it before, you cannot have either. And I can imagine these Jews were rather peaceful, not bearing arms, which made up and created that anger. That once more, I should put the video on, that once more goes to show this contrast. When the contrast is not there, you cannot have the goodness, and you get stuck in the anger of these tendencies. And also the idea, if you only have one sort of mechanically constructed truth, to follow the Newtonian scheme of finding the original, you're also sort of one-sided into that. Maybe some comments from Kalle while we're awaiting the champagne.
So I want to comment here on Engels' argument that Jesus is subordinate to God in the book of Revelation, argues Engels. And let's see in book of Revelation chapter 1. So here we have verse 8 of the first chapter. I am Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the ending, saith the Lord, that is the Almighty. And then if you jump to verse 18, so I am he that liveth and was dead. So now, let me see. Where is it? Yes, he says that I'm the first and the last in verse 70, excuse me, and the first is the last. And here is Jesus who speaks because I was dead, because God the Father was never dead. So there is, practically speaking, Jesus and God the Father are identical. Because in verse 8 we had him, God the Father saying, I'm the first and the last, and Alpha and Omega, and here Jesus says the same thing, I'm the first and the last. So the vocabulary is similar, is practically identical. So the book of Revelation chapter 1 doesn't make any difference between God the Father and Jesus. And let me go to next thing. I found the argumentation about the number of the beast fascinating. To top it off, Engels recounts a theory he heard in a lecture by Ferdinand Werner that infamous number 66 can easily be deciphered through some deft playing with numbers, given that Hebrew uses letters of the alphabet for numbers. All we need to do is add up the value of the Hebrew Neron Kaiser, in Greek it is Neron Kaiser, and we have 66. So Revelation brings the end of the beast, Nero at the hand of God, answers in the New Age. And then the author of this paper, Boer, asks, how has Engels' reconstruction stood the test of time?
Yes, I reacted that. That's very strange. Like truth can change in time, which is scary to say the least. But that's very Platonistic. It's incredibly alien to quantum theory, for instance, and the modern concept of understanding truth. That sort of, it changes because of how much, they often call it evidence, imitating science, which is, I don't know. A very good color. I missed that one. I remember it when I read it, and then it fell out of my. Yes.
But I would
That's
also
very
comment on this Penes numerical theory is impossible. This is what Boer affirms, that scholars today would find his numerical theory as impossible. But I'm certain that Boer actually makes a mistake here. Scholarship of today, they actually agree with Engels and with Werner here. For instance, if you remember, we read the paper by Koister from 2016, The Number of the Beast, the Revelation 13, Light of Papyrus, etc. Koister says, Nero Caesar is written in Hebrew letters. However, those equal to the requested 66. This approach has many proponents. That is, modern contemporary scholars who agree. If you check footnote 18, so you see there are all modern scholars. This is 97, 93, and still today, and even Koster himself thinks that Nero is the most plausible candidate. You remember this paper?
interesting.
This article proposes fresh support for the Nero Caesar interpretation.
Yes, support today needs to be fresh. And they usually say, my old teacher said, and he was honest, he said, the truths you learn today, they are fresh, and in 10 years, there will no longer be truths. This is the new academia, he said. So let's have the freshest.
Boer is mistaken. I don't think he's a revelation scholar, but he could easily have checked this out. So Ferdinand Werner and Engels is right in this sense. So Nero is still the main opponent, main protagonist of 6.
Very good.
So that was mine. Perhaps we should have our drink now.
Yes, it's champagne. Let's see. So I'm gonna get my glass.
1 minute. 1 minute. Kalle is back. I have to put some ice.
That's it.
And it's almost 30 degrees here.
Oh, but not inside, I hope.
No, not inside, but still it feels. It feels so I have to put some ice.
Oh, lovely.
And I will also present to you my liqueur of crema catalana.
Ponte Minho Licor de Crema. Aha. How many percent is it?
15.
Ah, that's okay.
15, yes.
That's perfect for summer.
Yes.
I have my glass here.
Okay, so let me see.
Oh, lovely. I get envious. Everyone participating, a great thank you for listening in, for your comments. Thank you all the ones who've been inspiring us, all the authors, philosophers, scientists, neurologists, Jan Aiskens, John Appleton, Stephen M. Rosen, Professor Peter Mostard, of course, Allan Emrén, Stefan Mangold, Lars Landström, to mention the ones here in Sweden.
Samsi.
Many more. Many more. Thank you.
Thank you. Hip hooray for 1,700.
Hurra!
Hooray for
Hooray. Cheers. Skål. Salute. Salud. Ah.
Yummy.
I think that was the first cheer over Zoom. Remember we cheered before in front of a grave in Stockholm. The grave of Sven Hedin, or was it Bellman? I forgot which one it was.
Sven Hedin, and I thought 2 years ago it was at Sven Hedin. This year it was at the occasion of your birthday. But it was also to perhaps to celebrate 1500 at Bellman at the church in Stockholm.
Ah, yeah, Klara Church, Central Stockholm. I remember now.
Number 1500. I don't remember.
I don't know what we're going to do for the 2000. That should be celebrated in New York, maybe, or something. Some special place. Well, I end this 1700 B. It became pretty long. It was supposed to be half time. It was 1 hour, but it was a pleasure. I thank everyone for listening.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you. I stop the recording here. Thank you.